Welcome to Right Fit Leader, a podcast from Alec Broadfoot and the Hire with Confidence team at VisionSpark. This is where visionaries, entrepreneurs, and leaders learn how to hire leaders, lead better, and build teams that last. Through expert insights, real client stories, and conversations with top leaders, you will hear how we find A players for your business. This is Right Fit Leader.
Welcome back to the Right Fit Leader podcast, where we explore how visionaries can elevate their leadership, surround themselves with the right people, and scale their companies without losing the culture and core values that matter most. I'm your host, Alec Broadfoot, and today we are welcoming someone who deeply understands the power of clarity, wisdom sharing, and scaling what makes companies truly exceptional. Our guest today is Jon LoDuca, founder of PlaybookBuilder, creator of the Wisdom Link, and trusted advisor to some of the most elite entrepreneurs in the country. For more than 20 years, Jon has helped the top 1% of business leaders identify, package, and monetize what makes them great. His passion is helping organizations capture their genius, transfer it to their teams, and create followed by all cultures that actually scale. Jon, welcome to the show.
Alec, it's really fun to be here with you. Nice to see you, friend.
Jon, you built PlaybookBuilder to help companies capture their genius and to turn it into scalable training and communication. What gap did you see in the marketplace?
Oh, well, my story with this has been like a lifelong fascination. I was a humanities guy. I wasn't interested in business, got sort of seduced by the dot-com thing in the 90s. I was on the West Coast living in Silicon Valley, and I was totally disinterested in what was going on. And then it just landed in my lap, and I kind of found myself intrigued by it. Wound up out in the Midwest with a little .com that had a really remarkable culture. And that was my first blush at really solid leadership, really powerful values expressed in like the day-to-day operations of a business, and was just so in love with that experience. It was a small little company. It's called Bluegill. I was employee number 12. And within 2 years, we sold it for $250 million. And This team were so kick butt. They were so awesome. We still have reunions. Like it was that special, I think, for everyone. And I just thought, boy, there's something going on here. There's just something really powerful, not just because we did well and we caught the bubble at the right time and stuff like that. I just mean the way that they held that place together as we were going. Because I was really, young and early in the company, but by the time we were sold, we were 120 people in 2 countries. And yet we were a unified whole somehow. And that began this sort of odyssey to deconstruct and hack at what that thing is. And I found a word for it and built a business around it and a software company to kind of capture it. And that word is wisdom, which is such a hokey word, but it's really the thing that I hung my hat on as that galvanizing force in an organ. It's kind of the unwritten rules.
Yeah, that's just great. And we're a customer of PlaybookBuilder, and I can't wait for our customers to see what we're launching here. And so a lot of leaders, they struggle with getting everyone aligned and executing. How does PlaybookBuilder help companies improve their culture, communication, and even execution?
Okay. This is a really big one. So it's a big conversation, and
it is.
And this is a complex topic, and I really flip and hate complexity. So I'm going to try to explain it simply. And I'll start with, if you're listening to this and you're a visionary and you have the attention span like I do of a gnat or a 3-year-old child, first question is like, who cares, right? Like that would be the thing I'd want to know. Like, why does this matter at all? If you imagine the business as a machine, if it's running well, you get some really interesting benefits from it. And when you capture what makes things work and you can, automate those or scale those, or perfect and improve those things, you get some pretty neat byproducts. You can onboard and train people very quickly and retain so much of the values and that invisible glue that holds the place together. We call it speed to utility. That's like, how fast can I get somebody onto the team running and really locked in? You can sustain the loss of key people when you have that wisdom codified, when you understand how things work. You can lose somebody with 20 years experience and carry on, because that's a terrifying thing that's happening a lot You pour into somebody, that you get them rocking and rolling. You take your eyes off that because you're like, great, that's working. You focus on a dumpster fire. That person leaves, gets hit by a bus, or, wins the lottery, whatever. You lose them, and that can really be devastating. Or what's happening right now, it's kind of in our line of sight, is exiting the business entirely, selling it, and wanting to make a real killing on the sale of the business. Valuation can be really enhanced, or at least preserved, by capturing the way that things run. So if I'm a visionary listening to the podcast, I'm thinking to myself, why is any of this stuff important? Well, I can run hard, bang into stuff, and actually have an asset to sell when I'm ready to go. So for day-to-day chaos, or the end of the rainbow, this thing called wisdom is really important. Now, I'll talk about, and you get that. I mean, we talk about this, Alec, and we kind of come from a foundation of strategic coach. Where thinking about your thinking is kind of the format. Sullivan's genius, I think, is getting you to kind of unpack, like, how are you wired? And I came up through that discipline too. You get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what I'll talk about next is why it doesn't get addressed so commonly, and why what Playbook Builder is doing is helping to make that happen. Process is super flippin' boring. And I think it is something everyone knows about enough to know that they hate it, or they appreciate its value, but don't see why they need to focus on it when they're dealing with a dumpster fire or a firefight in their business. They go, we'll get to that later. I think that's because most of the guys that thought and wrote and taught on the subject are dead. Most of the best thinking came out of the industrial age. It came out of the last century, sort of pre-cell phone, pre-.com, pre-digital divide. And obviously, while those thinkers were brilliant and they were successful and impactful in their time, you can't just take that playbook and run it today. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about process is like, oh, that's adorable. I don't run a 1970s manufacturing, company. I'm not trying to turn an employee into a robot where I can just program them and optimize them, and all they have to do every day is turn a screw. And I want them to do that really well and consistently. Like, the stuff we need our people to be able to do requires discernment and judgment, sometimes moral decisions. That's a whole other level. So if you go and you think about process like a pyramid, okay, if we just said, okay, we're going to tune up this organization, we would start with the basics of process. Like the bottom of a pyramid, the bottom third of it would just be, workflows, just the kind of stuff we talk about when we talk about process, like, like a flow chart, how does a bill become a law in this organization? The next tier up would be the SOPs, the techniques, the nuances and best practices. And most folks stop there and they're like, man, this sucks. Like, why are we doing this stuff? But they don't keep going into the final piece of it, the top of the pyramid, which is the wisdom, the judgment, the discernment, the values that inform the choice making. When you get to that stuff, when you kind of name and nail that to the ground, and this is where you and I usually hit it off, what our thinking is, then you not only know what is the glue that binds the place together, even when there are no rules. Why does the owner zig and zag and new people don't get that? They don't have the same value system, the same stories, the same wisdom. But it's also really sucky when you're trying to hire people and you can't see into their heads, like opening up a box and look around in there. Like, the values that they have and that they bring with them will grossly inform how well they gel in that new company. I know you do a lot of this work to figure that stuff out about the candidate and probably the owners. So do we. We kind of weaponize that wisdom so that it can drive the why behind all of the hows. So it drives the vision and the value system and the principles into every single process. So what's cool is entrepreneurs bitch and complain like, oh my God, we wrote all this stuff down. Nobody uses it, or it's empty, it's lifeless. Or why do we have to write like all these details when most of my people don't need that stuff? They don't really. What they really are craving is the wisdom.
Mm-hmm. And I think beyond that too, your playbook builder, what I think it can really do is when you have a new employee, you can really use your tool to instill culture and core values and be really excited to work for your company. And as companies scale, it's really hard to have that one-on-one touch with the owner or the leadership team. And so they can hear the why behind what you do, what core values are, what you're super passionate about, how you help, how you're a hero to your clients, why is what you do making a difference, how they can excel and grow in the organization. What are some of the things that you don't want them to do, right? And so, I see it as a way to really save an owner's time, but really instilling passion and culture and values within new hires as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important. I
Mm-hmm.
realize I've been dancing around it. I hate doing commercials. I love these ideas. We love serving businesses, and the kinds of things we're doing, impacting them, are really measurable. But I don't want to go like, let me tell you about my software. But I'm going to, so that we have kind of a stable platform. So
Mm-hmm.
for your listener, what the hell is Playbook Builder? It's like a video-based AI-powered learning platform. So you can put all of the how-tos for your business into one place. It's like your private Siri. And so you can access that, you can onboard and train. And because it really exploits video well, you do storytelling, you can show and tell, you can do a walkthrough, you can do the kinds of things you do if you were a team of 2 or 3 people, but you can do it with a huge teams of thousands of people in different time zones, and keep everybody around the company campfire. And what's powerful about the platform, and I love this part of it, Alec, is we built marketing software into a learning tool. I was, early into this game, and we were putting stuff in the cloud. We thought we were so cool. Like, it's in the cloud. We'd go in, we harvest wisdom, we get all this stuff out of the subject matter experts, and we'd put it in the cloud. And it was like, well, anybody can get it in here that has a password. This is so cool. Everyone can access the wisdom. They didn't. They forgot they owned it. And we were like, oh, that sucks. And that's not what we wanted at all. We wanted everyone using this and engaging with it. So we realized it's a marketer's problem. And we built the kind of marketing software you'd use to drive prospects, but you can use it to drive learning in your team. Like text everybody on a Wednesday with a link to a video because a policy's changed. Or build a drip campaign for a new hire. So while you bring them on board, you do the 90-minute orientation in the break room, and then what happens? You just turn them loose? No, the software will coax and kind of monitor them and reach out and bring them in and show them things, and not just for the first 90 days, but maybe for a whole year. So you get some leverage that way, and you drive adoption with this content that you've collected. And that has made a huge difference. It's kind of almost another category than like a learning software. Oh, it's in the cloud. That's kind of compulsory learning. That's like classroom style learning. We realized kind of a long time ago, things are moving too fast for folks just to stick it in the cloud, teach people, and then they go and do it over and over again. Things are too dynamic for that. So just to give your listener like some clarity, the real juice of it is the wisdom in the head of the team. It's a place to put it. Software is a place to put it, but it does some heavy lifting to try to help the company drive that into the organization. So it's not static. And you and I get to play around with, as well as we built a paywall in there. So my entrepreneurs who are building out trainings and things can monetize it. They can charge for their playbooks. Not only can they train their staff, but they could even bring clients in there, or, do things like that, and really bring their wisdom into the marketplace.
Yeah. And that's something that we're really looking forward to. So we're about to launch something for our clients here, but that's phase 1. Phase 2 would be then to offer that to the world and monetize it, which we're excited about. The playbook has some really cool features with video. You can have tools and PDFs. Something that we stumbled upon is that you can even offer a quiz, right? To test.
Yeah.
So if you're onboarding a new employee, or if you're having a client go through a training, there's a quiz option in there. Talk more about that and maybe some of the other bells and whistles of Playbook Builder.
Yeah, well, everything we're trying to do is to drive engagement, and engagement's often invisible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why somebody's not plugged in. I'm running an L10, and we run our business on EOS. I'm running an L10, and I got numbers in my scorecard that are off track. It's a who or it's a how. It's a person or a process. And frankly, at that moment, I may not know. And so what do? Well, I lift the hood and I go look at the process and I go, is it correct? And have people been trained on it? Like, my job's the leader. So my job is to set the table and let everybody have the opportunity to be successful around here. If I don't do that, then I can't just be wagging my finger at people. I mean, it's my job to make sure they've had access to the tools they need. in one place where they can find them and they're not like scrambling around or wandering the halls, wondering what's the best way to do it. Now, once that's been done, now I can hold that person accountable. So reporting helps with that. And things like quizzes and surveys enable more of an engagement relationship with the learning. But my favorite feature in the thing, really, of all the cool stuff, like you can make a video in Playbook Builder and AI will convert it into a standard operating procedure. Like really cool stuff that it does. But one of the simplest things that a client of ours suggested years ago is you can create QR codes in the platform. So I'm trying to teach a procedure on how to use a piece of equipment or something. If I'm the worker out in the field, like I'm not going to remember, you know what I mean? And I may not have my laptop with me. Maybe I'm a trades person or a manufacturing person or a healthcare person or whatever. I may not just be like wandering around with my laptop. We have the ability to create a QR code, print it out, stick it on the equipment or a vehicle or a physical space, hit it with your phone, and it brings you right to the spot with the training. So it's like an on-demand resource to the learner. And I can't think of a better way to serve them is give them what they want when they need it, wherever they are, because they're busy. These people are busy. They have too many logins. They have lots of stuff going on. Our job is as leaders is to clear the path for them to be amazing, to do their job and at a high level. So anything that Playbook Builder is about is facilitating that, giving them the tools, giving them the mindset and the values that attend it. Give them the whole shebang so they can all be awesome. I think there's some really scary stats that come out of Gallup, and it's something like 85% of employees are dissatisfied. 50% are looking for something else to do.
Yeah, that's the engagement survey that Gallup does every other year. And it's usually around 30% of the employees are engaged. Some years it's 25%, some it's 32%, but it's about 30% are considered engaged and the rest are considered disengaged. And I think the bottom 20% of that disengaged are what they call actively disengaged, that they're actually going in the opposite direction of where you want to go. So
that's terrifying. Yeah. My dad's generation, and maybe yours too, these guys were just happy to have a paycheck. And so when you were a leader, you could expect discipline from an employee on day one. There's scarcity and they're afraid of losing their jobs. And so you'd get disciplined. And then eventually, maybe after a few years, they'd decide there's a certain affinity, like, oh, I like the work, and then maybe after 20 years, a sense of belonging. We're a Ford family, that kind of thinking, I think in the last just generation or so, we've inverted that paradigm. Now, if you don't get engagement with a worker, if you don't get a sense of belonging for them, where they feel like they're a part of something, you don't get discipline. They don't show up. You might get malicious compliance. They may, grudgingly participate, but they're not in their heart and soul. And I think everyone is really sad about that. I think employees are too. I think they really want to unleash themselves and have something they're a part of that is meaningful to them, and they can grow and develop, and that promise of like, oh, I got a job and I'm really growing and I'm really expanding myself. And I think they're just like, meh. And so it's incumbent upon the leaders to figure out how to drive engagement, to try to drive that sense of purpose and meaning. And it's a marketer's job. Peter Drucker said management is marketing. It's absolutely true. But boy, are we ever threadbare as leaders to try to keep everybody raw, motivated and engaged, or get everybody around the campfire. It wasn't hard when it was 5 employees, but now you've got 50 people and it's hard.
Yeah. And I'm going to tie that to the Gallup survey, because a lot of people, if there's three tiers that they talk about, there's engaged, disengaged, and actively disengaged. Most employers think, well, if someone's engaged, they'll actually just become a little bit less engaged. But what actually is true, someone who's highly engaged becomes actively disengaged very quickly.
Wow.
So they actually skip the middle step. And I always talk about to my clients, like, you want to spend time with your A players. You want to find out what's working well. You want to take them to lunch. You want to invest in them, because if not, your competitors they'll poach them in a second.
Yep.
And so what better way to maintain culture in your organization by having this great tool? Jon, I wanted to ask you, how has AI changed change to Playbook Builder? What is AI doing that's impacting Playbook Builder?
Yeah, very important question, because it's timely for a lot of businesses to be asking themselves morally where they stand on this line. And I had to ask myself, what are we doing around here? Are we going to exploit this incredible capability and technology, and to what end? And we thought, I'm a humanist, and I'm a Christian, and I like people, and I believe in small business. It's my passion and my jam. And I wanted to serve small businesses, not disintermediate critical thinking, not get workers scooched out the door and irrelevant because of AI. So we had to ask ourselves, how are we going to exploit these technologies without disintermediating people? Because they have the potential to do that. I think there's like a dividing line with a lot of entrepreneurial thinking, like, oh, it's so exciting. We can reduce costs and we can streamline things and we won't need people. And I'm like, oh, wow, let's not do that. That would be calamitous. Mm-hmm. So we've exploited AI in the platform primarily as a force multiplier for content creation. So we use it, like I'd mentioned, to do things like transform a video into an SOP. So you can go in there and explain or demonstrate, do a screen capture and walk through how you do something, hit a button, and the damn thing turns it into a standard operating procedure. It's incredible. Like angels and fairies. Like, it's just incredible. You can drag your accountability chart into Playbook Builder, and it'll turn every seat on the AC into its own playbook. So you can boom, 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 stand up playbooks for every single seat. You can imagine how valuable that would be. You welcome to a company, you have an onboarding playbook where the founder is telling you his passions and his vision and the 3-year, story that they want to achieve those goals. And you're just getting immersed in the kind of mentorship exposure, maybe only executives get, but you're a really low level person. Imagine how amazing that would be for the new hire. Mm-hmm. And then in addition, they pop into a playbook that teaches them everything that they need to know how to do, taught by a subject matter expert in the company. And you come to find out that guy doesn't even work there anymore. He's been retired for 3 years, but you're going to get access to that playbook. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I get passionate about those opportunities for the employee. We also use it to create playbooks. We use large language models to help as a first draft to create a playbook. So sometimes you're looking at a blank screen and it's just daunting. Like, oh God, I don't know where to start here. And I think that a hybrid of the wisdom of the subject matter experts, but maybe the framework that the AI provides is a nice balance. And this season, we're rolling out an ability to turn Playbook Builder into its own private Siri. Like, you could quite literally talk to it. So we can aggregate all the information in the platform, synthesize it down into bite-sized chunks, and you'll be able to talk to it like you would Siri and have it just basically serve up short answers. And then click a button, it'll take you to the source material where you could take a deep dive. Watch the video or, read more about how to do that very thing. But if you happen to be like, I just need the little fast one, you can have your own private, version of that, not with content that's sourced from wherever, your company's content. So we just are using it to help companies do what we think they ought to be doing, which is to know why they are killer and fabulous and name that and define it and put it someplace where everyone can access it. So there's access to best practices for people who want to be great. I can't do much with C players, except I can know who they are. The reporting points at that. Like, I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, I can't necessarily, Playbook Builder won't help you find talent, but it can make it very easy for players that want to be great, even your B players, to know pathways of success, because they're going to be mentored by your A players. Typically, your A players are too busy to be coaches. Like, you don't want to take your top sales guy and make him a sales trainer. Everybody knows that's a terrible idea. Like, let that guy close deals. However, get his best practices out of his head and give it to the rest of the team so that they can improve and they can emulate that guy's pathways of thinking and techniques. People say to me, well, they won't want to do it. I'll tell you what, A players do. And you know why they do? They hate being on B teams. B players are stingy and petty. A players, the guys that actually kick ass, those guys love to share because they hate being on teams that don't win. So they're more than happy. They're not going to like harm their own paycheck to do it. They're not going to, say, oh, I'd rather, spend time with the kid who's been with the company for 2 weeks than go out and close deals. Like, they know that that's where they should spend their time. But if they can have their cake and eat it too, share those best practices. We did a lot of that work. We'd go in, harvest the wisdom out of this person, map it as a process, get their best practices in place. Just hearing them talk about the problem is just like, the kind of wisdom you really want to get access to. It's a mentorship program, but that sales guy now gets to go back to work, go back to closing deals, but every single person in the sales team has access to him in their pocket. That was the vision. So the AI aspect of it is as a force multiplier, Alec. We're not getting into workflow automation. We're not doing that. We're not getting people so that they don't have to just think or understand. They just have to push a button all day long. I think that's the end of engagement. I think that's a terrible idea. So we've skirted it. As a resource for people to learn and understand, absolutely, that's a place where we want to play, where you can be mentored by the best people. But we've kept it as we've restrained our zeal and the capabilities of AI so we don't tread into pushing employees out.
And I don't know if your playbook builder can do this or if this is an idea, but I think a lot of visionaries, people who've started companies, have a lot of knowledge, and they don't know all that they know.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
so
100% true.
Yeah, and so if my team said, "Hey, Alec, we want you to distill what you know and put it in Playbook Builder," I wouldn't even know where to start. But would it be possible? And maybe this is a feature, but you actually can just set up a list of questions from employees and clients and interview the visionary. And the visionary can share her information, knowledge, and then AI can automatically put it into playbooks. Is that possible, or is that something that you offer now?
Yes, absolutely. That's really what I was getting at before, where you could do a riff and it would synthesize that into major principles and ideas. And so that's so my life's work. I think maybe I've told you this story before. I wound up becoming the go-to team for the strategic coach to do process work. And I got lucky, had a client. He was running the Northeast for Lincoln Financial. He had a territory. He ran 175 reps, and he hired me to do this kind of work, figure out his pathways of thinking, deconstruct his value system and how it drove choice making, and build it into a predictive model, a process that he could scale. And that was a ton of fun. John DeMonda was his name. Well, John got tapped to run all of Lincoln Financial, and overnight it became like the horse whisperer for the financial services industry. Not everybody, just the top 10 producers on every platform got hot in strategic coach, and Dan said, "I'm going to give you this opportunity." So I got to sit with amazing entrepreneurs, and not like, not the kind of consultant who'd come in and be like, "Let me tell you how to," I wasn't that guy at all. I had no qualifications to be that. These were like banger, big time 30-year industry veterans. But like a ghostwriter, my job was to harvest it out of their heads. Alec, what I learned was you can't do this for yourself, number one. You can't just know what you know, and you're 100% right to recognize that. Someone has to ask you a question. And so we've been dabbling with an AI that'll interface and kind of extract that information, because I built an inquiry model, a binary inquiry model that kind of serves up the questions in a certain format that would tease this stuff out. What we also learned, the second thing, and the reason why I'm adamant about the way we've architected Playbook Builder, was if I asked an entrepreneur or you just right now, "Hey, give me your values," or "Tell me how, you would be like looking at me with big blank silences going, "Shit, I have no idea." But if I asked you how to do everyday things, $1,000 says there's a why that's very dear to you about the how. And there is where we would find their wisdom. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't marketing mumbo jumbo. It wasn't the kind of crap that you'd put on a poster because it was like clever. It was the everyday mundane things that had a why behind them, where their technique differed from everybody else. So they do things a different way. Why? Well, when you get the why out of the entrepreneur, you end up getting a story about their childhood or something, and you realize they've got this whole worldview that shows up in why they answer the phone on the second ring. They have a whole value system that has to do with, integrity or honesty or giving it the extra push, or not being a sucker or serving the little guy, whatever their framework is. It's very subjective. Everybody's got their own. And it actually gets down to the nitty gritty of everyday things. So I learned was if I asked him questions that were kind of highfalutin, theoretical, I'd just get bullshit answers. If I asked him straight up, like, how do you answer the phone? I'd end up getting this entire lecture. And you'd be like, that's gold. That's why we built PlaybookBuilder. When I first started the business, I was just writing stuff down on a pad of paper. I got a call from Tom Ziegler. Tom was Zig Ziglar's, he is his son. And before Zig had passed away, Zig had fallen down a flight of stairs. And just the way his body landed on the landing there, his torso cast forward and he hit his head on the doorknob. What they thought was a concussion was actually much more serious. And they saw rapid cognitive decline. Like, this is a guy who could make it rain. Like he could stand on stage and hold an audience breathless for, an hour. And he could barely hold it together. He was getting lost on stage. They got him a chair. He'd lose his place. His wife or his daughter started interviewing him. This is when I got a phone call from Tom. He was like, we got a problem. And I just knew I got to film him. It's like a national institution. Like we have to figure out a way to capture this wisdom that isn't going to be like me with a pad of paper like it's the 1990s. And so PlaybookBuilder was born out of the idea that the videos could actually unpack so much more content that we relied on it. And then through the interview process, tease out that kind of stuff. So Alec, long answer to a quick question. Can we do that? Yes. Do I believe that the interviewing process is critical? It's an essential piece of it. And do I think that you can ask random questions? No, actually, you can have someone interview you about how you go through the first discovery process with one of your clients. And my guess is if they asked you why a bunch of times, you'd end up with like a very rich answer that would surprise you. And then that person and you would start to see as a fact pattern. You do that and you think that way about a lot of things in the business, that there's a framework that's dear to you, that's unconsciously driving you, that shows up in everything you do, how you order lunch, who you hire, who you fire, what kind of clients you attract, what kinds of, comp structures you're attracted to. Like there's a framework in your brain about the way the world works. And if you get a handle on it, that's the asset. Then if you could imagine teaching that framework, that worldview to new people, getting them an understanding of those value systems, you could imagine the breakthroughs. And it would be innovative too. It wouldn't just be doing it the way you do it. If they understood the mission, they could innovate, but within bounds. Yeah. There's a great story about Nordstrom, and Nordstrom is famous for this kind of stuff. Like they understand it and they've really taught it so that the guy out in the field can make a call even if there's no playbook, no SOP, doesn't exist, but he gets the why so much. It's so in their DNA that they can make a decision on the fly that's aligned with values. And the best story is the guy walked up to the counter with one leg. You would think he was an Afghan soldier, a former vet, and he had lost his leg in the war and wanted to buy a pair of shoes and wanted to know if they had them in a certain size. And he was basically talking to the guy and said, I only need the right shoe though. And the guy looked over the counter and he was like, well, you're not paying for two shoes. And that was the beginning of an entire national program to source shoes for amputees.
Wow.
I mean, that's a heads up play by a guy who got the mission, really understood what they're doing at Nordstrom. And there wasn't a plan for that. So once you codify that stuff, once you name like what you're about as the visionary, you don't have to write SOPs that are like turn on the computer, open up email. It's like, God, of course you don't want to write those things. Nobody does. But when you get the layer of like the why, it can sprinkle on top of everything that goes on in the company. So I don't know, even, I wanted to get that out there because I think that's the most important thing for someone to think about if they're trying to tackle process. Our software is a vehicle for doing it, but honestly, understanding what you're really doing is more important than my software. Like I would love your listener to go, hey, I'm going to check out PlaybookBuilder. I'm more excited about the idea of them going, I need to think about this differently. I'm not going to put a bunch of crap in there and expect magic to happen. It won't. You could stick it in a C drive. You could stick it under your desk. If it's just a bunch of lifeless SOPs, you won't get anywhere with that. Things are too dynamic for people to pull the play from like 2 years ago and execute on it. They need to be able to think like you. You have to transfer that framework of thinking. What is that? That's yours. That's That's scar tissue from doing it wrong. That's the wisdom you accumulate over a career. And hacking at that's the most important work you can do, because that's where leverage lives. That's where you end up seeing businesses scale without falling apart, because they hire a bunch of talented people who do not share the same value system, and the place falls to pieces. And they're like, why? These people were qualified. Yeah, but they don't get it. What does that mean? Well, we don't know. We don't know what that is. Well, that's a problem for you. If you can't name it, you can't tell if it's wrong. It's like that senator talking about pornography. I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it. Not helpful, right? So naming that ineffable, invisible, unwritten set of rules is kind of an entrepreneur's important work, because if they can do that, it helps with their marketing. It helps with talent attraction. It helps with training. It's the galvanizing invisible force, and it's right inside of them. They carry it around with them all day long, but they normalize it. Having somebody pull it out, architect a process. I could just do this with you on the phone. Architect a process step by step by step, and then go deep into, well, why do you do it like that? And you'd be surprised the crap that'll come out of you. You're like, I don't know, everybody does. Doesn't everybody do it that way? No. Turns out you do it differently because of a bunch of things about you that are really remarkable and excellent and unique. Your upbringing, your Scottish heritage would somehow find its way into the conversation. What does that mean? Well, we have like a certain perspective on things. Well, what is it? Well, let's describe it. And you'd be surprised what comes to the fore. So can the software do that stuff to an extent? Yeah. Are we dabbling with that as an iterative interview tool? Yes, we've actually been doing the very thing. But I still think humans can do this with each other and get the same outcomes.
And it's not any secret that most entrepreneurial companies struggle with people issues and process issues. I bet you it's about 95% of the issues if you had people and process. So today we've been talking about process. Our podcast, The Right Fit Leader, is all about people. And so it would be interesting if clients that partnered with us could minimize their issues by 95%. That would be interesting.
I love that.
Jon, I want to ask you too, from your vantage point, why is getting the right leader in the right seat so fundamental to a company's long-term success?
That's a great question, and such a big one. I think because the requirements to be successful today are very, very different than they've ever been. Executing against best practices used to be the framework necessary for success. You would essentially go buy a leader with a skill set, and that in and of itself would have sufficed. But because of the dynamism, the change, and the requirement for a lot of creativity, we've had to upgrade what excellent looks like. And suitability and alignment are actually more important than just quote unquote good. Like, it used to mean something. You'd get somebody with an MBA because they knew algorithmic thinking and they could run plays, and you could just go run this program, and it would be a human being who got an MBA and they knew the program and they'd run it. Now it's like, man, I need somebody with an MFA. I need somebody who can think holistically, dynamically, pull from different disciplines. I mean, there's a whole host of other requirements. And so I think it's super crucial that you pick somebody not just good, but suitable, aligned, which is why this conversation's fun with you. I get into, well, then what the hell does that mean for you as a company? Like, what are you doing? What do you believe? Who likely would be excellent here? What are your values really? Not the cute ones you use for marketing, but I mean really the day-to-day ones that shape and drive everyday choices. Like, what are they really? And knowing that is a incredible tool. But as it pertains to bringing in a number two, for example, I can tell you, absent an awareness of that and being able to effectively tease it out in an interview, you're buying a piece of hardware that may not be suitable for the kind of needs you have. You're just buying like a set of capabilities. You need somebody that can think in alignment with the way you think. They can bring better capabilities, different, background, different skill sets, but if the values are misaligned, you're host. You'll never, ever get there from here. That's crucial.
And Jon, you've worked with entrepreneurial teams for many years. Why do you think visionaries, they tolerate mediocre performance from their leadership team?
Tyranny of the urgent, a mindset of top-down organizational design. The paradigm shifts at a certain point in the evolution of a business. In the early days, the entrepreneur is the solo dude who hires a helper. That helper is, maybe administrative or something like that. And they kind of start offloading things. And then they hire people to do some of the things that are more dear to them, not deficiencies like taxes and handling the payroll or reading emails, but the things that they do well. Like they start hiring people to help with fulfillment or sales. But at a certain juncture, even that gets exhausted and they need to hire people to run those things. They need to hire leaders. And the paradigm is suddenly very, very different because the knowledge and the capability set that the leader has now needs to be not a derision of that, not like here's a junior version of Jon who can also sell. They need to hire someone who's complementary. That's different. And I don't think that they're aware of that requirement. I think they think it's the same idea. I need people who will do what I tell them to do. And so they hire people sort of like not partnered with them, but will execute their plays. That is not really a leadership team. What they need are a team of, quality people, rivals, folks with their own life experiences who will be peers in their own discipline. That's I think a major milestone shift is when they go from hiring junior versions of themselves, and they still have to be the source of all knowledge and know-how, very much a top-down dynamic. Come to Jon for the answers, come to Jon to close the big deal, go to Alec, to really know what's going to happen next, to really a leadership team that can function in alignment of values, but autonomously with their domain expertise. And I think they tolerate mediocrity because they've normalized having to be the answer person like a vending machine. So if mediocrity means, these people are just looking for the boss to solve their problems, part of that is mediocre hiring. Part of that is, I think, they strip autonomy from them. They're there to answer every question. They shut down dissent. They do the kinds of things you do with people that aren't peers. And if they are peers, they'll leave, or you will treat them so poorly, they'll get like a learned helplessness. They'll just shut down and they'll just do whatever the boss tells them to do. See, they don't really look like a team of leaders. They look like a team of doers with the quarterback calling plays, and they don't get enough leverage for that. So that's where they get stuck. They hit the ceiling because it's the same paradigm. They just have more overhead now. They got a bunch of expensive people who are supposed to be leaders that can't really function autonomously because they weren't allowed to, and have a leader who understands that that's how that shapes, that's how that shift needs to occur. They can't lead the way they did when they had an admin and a bunch of junior people doing what they were told. They have to be a team member, orchestrating, leading people, but still allowing them, their voice. That's my hot take on that one.
That's great, Jon. And we are almost out of time here. So, Jon, for people listening, how can they find out about Playbook Builder?
Oh, I think our website's a great spot to go and just see what we're up to. That's playbookbuilder.com. And my LinkedIn, which is on here, is a great way to contact me. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this stuff. I think it's in these days, I think it's an urgent conversation. I think people are frustrated and tired, Alec, and I think they're looking for a way out of some of the frustration. So I love to serve in this regard. Anybody who's interested can give me a shout. But I thank you for the chance to chat with you today. It was really fun to see you.
Yeah, Jon, this has been an outstanding conversation. Your ability to help leaders articulate their genius, build clarity into their organizations, and scale makes them exceptionally, truly stand out. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights and your mission with us today.
Yeah, thanks.
For our listeners, be sure to check out playbookbuilder.com and explore how you can capture and scale the unique genius inside your business. And if you're a visionary looking to elevate your leadership, hire the right fit leader or find the right integrator to move your company forward, you can connect with us at visionsparksearch.com. So we build and help you build teams that protect your culture and bring your vision to life. So thanks for joining us on the Right Fit Leader podcast. Until next time, lead with clarity, hire with intention, and keep building the team that can take your vision further.
Right on. That's great.
Thanks for listening to Right Fit Leader, brought to you by VisionSpark. Have questions or ready to hire your right fit leader? Email us at discover@vision-spark.com. Until next time, remember VisionSpark is your go-to partner for finding leaders and building teams.